it's a bad game. Yooka-Laylee is a bad game. And I've had that on my heart for 7 years. And by gum, I will say it now and I will say it loud. Yooka-Laylee is a bad video game. Hey, how's it going? It's David. I'm in the booth today. It is hotter than a $2 pistol, as they say. So, I don't know how long this will be. I want to talk for some undetermined amount of time about the announcement of Yooka-Replaylee, the trailer for which will probably be playing right now. Yooka-Replaylee is a remaster, it appears. Not a remake, but a remaster, which means they're not rebuilding the game from the ground up, but they are taking the original game and making it prettier. They are taking this game from 2017 Yooka-Laylee and they are putting it out again, and they are going to sell it to you. Now, I think the default reaction is, okay, it's 7 years, that's a little short for a remaster, I feel like, but it's not unprecedented, right? And usually, I would agree with you. However, I'm a little miffed about this one. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm a little miffed about this one, and I'll tell you why. Let me preface everything I'm about to say with this. I did not back Yooka-Laylee on Kickstarter. I think I got Yooka-Laylee in a bundle. I definitely did not pay full price for Yooka-Laylee. I think. It's been 7 years. I did buy it pretty close to launch. I think I was playing it in 2017. I will have some footage from my revisiting of the game in the wake of this announcement playing while this video is going. Yooka-Laylee is not a good video game. Yooka-Laylee, in many ways, feels a little bit like a false bill of goods. Now, I know that's a pretty critical remark. That's a pretty critical remark, so I'm going to try and back it up right now. Yooka-Laylee was sold to individual people like yourself and me, asking them to pledge money to a Kickstarter. Now, I don't know if you, dear viewer, have ever given money to a Kickstarter. I have. I have done so twice. Number one was the Trial by Trolley board game from Cyanide and Happiness, which I've played, I think, twice. And the other one was Shenmue 3. So that's the one video game I've backed on Kickstarter. And the fact that I've backed one video game on Kickstarter and it was Shenmue 3 should tell you why I've not backed any other games on Kickstarter. You know, I mean, Paste gave Shenmue 3 a 9.9, so obviously it's like a masterpiece video game and I didn't waste $100. But I learned my lesson. And the lesson I learned is that companies don't care about you, even if you are directly or indirectly funding their product, right? Because at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to shareholders, business meetings, all of that stuff. You pledging your money, paying more than the game is worth, perhaps for some trinket or whatever, you don't matter to these people. Anyone. I don't think that's ever been true, that you've ever mattered to any person who has ever run a Kickstarter. It's always the bottom line. The thing that miffs me about Yooka-Laylee a little bit is that that game was sold as sort of a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, specifically. Pretty hard. In general, it was part of a wave of like indie 3D platformers that we're kind of seeing the tail end of, I think. Maybe it'll come back, you know, like a small wave. But mid-2010s, we saw several of these. And I think a lot of them kind of came out of the wake of A Hat in Time. When did A Hat in Time come out? Because I feel like that, not necessarily financially successful, but definitely critically successful, and its audience really liked it. When did this game come out? So A Hat in Time and Yooka-Laylee both came out in 2017, so you could probably call them the sort of standard bearers of this little wave of indie 3D platformers that we got half a decade ago now. Oh my god. A Hat in Time was made by new developers who were fans of those games, and Yooka-Laylee was pitched as a game being made by some of the developers of those games that you liked, making a new game. The game that they made blows, and I'm sorry to say this, but I paid for this video game at some point, and I played quite a bit of it because I am in the prime demographic for Yooka-Laylee. I'm about 30 years old, which means I was a child in the late 90s, like a small child in the late 90s. Banjo-Kazooie was legitimately one of my favorite games, and it didn't take a bunch of bearded YouTubers telling me that it was good for me to know that it was good. It isn't better than Super Mario 64. It wasn't, and I'm not going to pretend like it is now. It is a nice response to Super Mario 64. It is not a better Super Mario 64. It's a great game, though, you know, and it beats the hell out of Donkey Kong 64, which same developer and, or at least same development studio. I believe there's some crossover of the actual team, but I couldn't tell you how much. Yooka-Laylee was supposed to be a return to form for some of those people. It was supposed to be this 3D platformer with cutesy characters and dialogue boxes, and you know what I mean. It is the lowest rent version of that I think I've ever encountered, and I've played some like real indie ones. Like I think I like Macbat more than Yooka-Laylee, and Macbat is literally a one-guy video game, I think. Tori, those are good. I like those. Those last couple Spark the Electric Jester games. I've not played the third one, but the second one was really fun. I didn't care for the first one very much. Yooka-Laylee, though, I never liked. I don't like it now. I've played a little bit more of it before talking to you. I don't like it. It's not good. The problem with Yooka-Laylee isn't the controls. In all fairness sake, it actually controls pretty tightly, but there is so much dialogue. There is so much text that you have to go through. Everyone is talking at you, just yep, from every direction. There are too many NPCs who give you little tasks, and they don't do anything interesting with them. It's just each one of them has sort of like a little idle animation cycle, and they play through that over and over and over as long as you sit there and, you know, push A or B to get all the way through the text section. Some of them you can skip with Y. Some of the cutscenes and forced camera swings that they do, you could skip with Y, but not all of them, which is weird. I don't know why that decision was made, other than it must be an engine thing. Like, the game's built on Unity, I think, which, not the best engine. There are some people who have done some really amazing stuff with Unity, and God bless them, and I'm sorry that Unity is maybe evil. I don't really know. That whole kerfuffle with them and installation fees and all of that stuff, not great to be tied to them in any way. Yooka-Laylee is not what I would call something that is an incredible use of Unity. It feels like we used Unity because it was cheap. And I'm sure that that probably was a central reason for choosing Unity at the time, because again, it was their first game. As that company, I should say, not as developers, but as a company, it was Playtonic's first game. So, you know, some slack there. Of course, it's not the most amazing looking thing in the world, and maybe that's the thing that they're wanting to correct, quote unquote, with this Yuka-Replaylee thing, but I don't know. I don't really understand the motivation for this, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe Yooka-Laylee did numbers, and I just don't know that. And they're like, we want to capture a piece of that again because we need some funding, because the whole industry's on fire right now, and that seems like a layup. I don't know. I hope that if they're going to reissue Yooka-Laylee, then this time it's good, because the first time it wasn't. Sorry, it wasn't good. Playing it just now to get some footage for this thing, it doesn't feel good to play. It is so slow. I understand that they were emulating some of the things that they had done before, and that was part of the selling point, but like, they modernized the controls in some ways, like using the triggers feels good on an Xbox controller, whatever. You know, more of your moves are tied to triggers. That was smart. What wasn't smart was just about the entire design of the thing. It has all of these like Unity asset quirks is what I'll call them, where it's like, oh, we put the tool to put down the cliff here, and then we put down a tree here, and we didn't really think about the fact that the character can fit between those two things, so you're probably going to get stuck, or you're going to jitter through it or something. Like, there's not really a lot of attention to detail in Yooka-Laylee. I think there are a lot of oversights. I think that even the basic design of the level, like the layout, isn't great. The levels in Yooka-Laylee get quite large. Some of them are very vast, especially considering what kind of game it is. It's really more of a spiritual successor to Banjo-Tooie than Banjo-Kazooie. And if you were an old fart like myself, then perhaps you see exactly what I'm getting at by making that comparison. Banjo-Tooie has the same problem of levels are too big, and often there's just like big chunks of emptiness in it. Banjo-Kazooie is a better game because the levels are smaller, which means they're tighter. Because the thing that I think you see in Tooie is you see roughly the same amount of content. Some of it's different, right? Like, they put in all these other mini games that I don't want to play, like the first-person shooter stuff. Don't like that. The like Rockman Soccer game, but not Rockman Soccer. Rockman Soccer, but not Rockman Soccer for the Super Nintendo. different video game. Tooie had these big expansive levels, but it kind of felt like each level had roughly the same amount of content as a Banjo-Kazooie level, but it was spread out way more, so there was a lot of like dead space in Banjo-Tooie. Banjo-Kazooie does not have a lot of dead space. And not dead space like the Xbox 360 shooter, the horror game that they just remade and no one played. No, dead space, empty space, dead air, if you will. There's a lot of moment-to-moment action in Banjo-Kazooie, and Banjo-Tooie stretched it out in such a way that the game feels, for lack of a better term, bloated. Yooka-Laylee felt like that more so. It kind of felt like what we really would have gotten if someone had made a Banjo 3E. I think they would have continued on that track and maybe still not learned the lesson, because obviously they didn't learn the lesson from Banjo-Tooie. They thought, oh no, this is the thing that people like. And maybe it was at the time. I'm not going to go back and look at magazine reviews or whatever for a game from 20-some years ago. I'm not going to do that for this. Yooka-Laylee is sparse. There's a lot of empty areas in it, and I don't think that making the game prettier is going to fix that. Now, I'll give you an example. So like in a Super Mario 64 level, you land in, and usually on your first star in a level, there's a pretty direct route to get to it. Like, Bob-omb Battlefield is literally a path up to the top of the mountain, right? Like, if you're just exploring the level, you're not forced to, but you're shepherded in a specific direction. Real guys go get the Chain Chomp star first. But for everybody else, you climb up the mountain and you fight King Bob-omb and whoop, 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 you kill him. Or push him down the mountain and then he's one of those rolling balls or whatever, I don't know. There's something you're gonna find that way that feels like, oh, this was the first thing I was supposed to do. The first star for Bob-omb Battlefield is the King Bob-omb fight, which is important to say because in Mario 64, unlike Banjo-Kazooie, when you would go in with a certain star, it would change the level and what was available in the level. So on the stars after you fight King Bob-omb, he's not up there because you already beat him and he exploded. Yooka-Laylee just kind of like plops you down in the first level, and then there's a ramp right ahead of you that you can go up. Okay, you go up the ramp with your new move that you just got in the tutorial area, and then it's just like thing to the left, a bare road right ahead of you that leads to something eventually, but it's bare road, and then like thing off to the right, and like little quills scattered like way too far apart from each other. Like there's a temple in the middle of the first level, and the temple has like, it's a square building, so it has 4 corners, and there's like a quill on the top of the little pillars that are kind of at each corner of the temple. There's one quill. So you have to jump up there specifically. And they're really far apart because the temple's really big, kind of for no reason. Like also a lot of things are big for no reason, which makes the levels feel bigger. But I also feel like they're kind of empty. Like it's weird to say because I just complained about there being too much crap to do that they're throwing at you. But also the crap is too spread out most of the time. It doesn't have what I want out of a 3D platformer, which is that sort of Nintendo feel of we're going to guide you through this curated process, and then we're going to open up the level because you're going to realize what you can do here and what the layout is. And now you're going to mess around and find new stuff. Yooka-Laylee's just like, I don't know, kid, I'm going to leave you at the sandbox for 30 minutes. You just build what you can, and then Daddy's going to come back, and we got to go. We got to go real fast. So you only have that little amount of time to do what you're going to do, and it doesn't feel good as a player. It doesn't feel as fun to experience, which, I don't know, it's something about teaching me the level and then giving me freedom to move is better than just giving me freedom to move. And also, like, you don't really have freedom to move in Yooka-Laylee because a lot of things are tied to abilities. And the abilities you aren't sort of naturally learning as you come to new areas that use them. Instead, there's the move learning NPC, your bottles. Trouser Snake, I think he's called, which, like, haha, hilarious. You have to go to him in his, like, one spot he's in each level and give him quills to get your moves. I think I see why they did that, because it seems simpler, maybe more sleek. You get that little store interface. Oh, this is modernizing the game. But, like, the thing about the bottles moves that worked is you always learn the move kind of in context. You really kind of would learn the new move and then immediately have an obstacle in front of you to use the new move so you know what it can do. This game kind of makes the problem that they had in Banjo-Tooie, which was it was much easier to run into things that you didn't have the move for yet, like little pads that you couldn't use until you found the right move, or certain pickups that you couldn't pick up until you learned the right move, or maybe you could pick them up but they were useless until you learned the right move, that sort of thing. It's way easier to encounter that before you could learn the move in Banjo-Tooie. And Yooka-Laylee does that, but it's even worse because it doesn't even teach you the move immediately. Like, you buy it and then Trouser gives you like a little explanation in text, but you're not experiencing the use case for the move, which means you don't really have a grip on it. Like maybe you try it out, but you don't really know how it's going to interact with the environment. You have to make assumptions and try things. And maybe they wanted that. I think it's poor design. I'm not going to use the word lazy. I don't think it's lazy, but I do think it's misguided. That's my main sticking point with Yooka-Laylee. That's the thing about that game that makes me miffed about the idea of them going like, oh, we made it better and we're going to sell it to you again. Like, did you fix that? Like, are the levels inherently different, or did you just put new shaders and different graphical techniques in it? Because if it's just that, I don't want to play that game. I don't want to play it now, and I can for no money because I already bought it, right? I can already play Yooka-Laylee if I really want to, and after playing it for this, no, I do not. It's a bad game. Yooka-Laylee is a bad game. And I've had that on my heart for 7 years, and by gum, I will say it now, and I will say it loud. Yooka-Laylee is a bad video game. I'm going to be honest with you. I think that this Yuka-Replaylee thing that they've just announced, which... thank God they made a joke about how terrible of a name that is in the trailer, so I don't have to. I think it's supposed to be like a feel-good moment, like a celebration of Playtonic, because it's their big 10th anniversary thing. They're like, we've been around since 2015, so for part of our 10th anniversary sort of build-up, we're going to reissue our first game, Yooka-Laylee. We're going to remaster Yooka-Laylee. It doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't feel good, and I'll tell you why. I feel bad for the people who backed Yooka-Laylee on Kickstarter still, because I feel like all of those people got shafted. They were told they were going to get this spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie. They didn't get that. They did not. They got a game that doesn't feel finished. They got a game that certainly does not feel polished. And they got a game that, like... I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this without like going in depth and trying to back it up here in this very casual conversation with you. But in a lot of ways, I think Yooka-Laylee feels broken. I think it feels broken in the way a lot of games that are built on Unity feel kind of busted, you know? It feels like the behind the scenes of the game isn't working correctly more often than not. It feels messy. It's a messy video game, Yooka-Laylee. And they're going to reissue it, and they're going to charge you an undetermined amount of money. I'm looking at the Steam page for Yooka-Replaylee right now, and it's just got there's no release date on it, so there's more information to come, and this is probably too out-of-pocket reactionary, and also there's no price. I don't know how much they're going to charge. The original Yooka-Laylee, full price right now, Yooka-Laylee is $19.99. It's $20. It is the kind of game that frequently goes on sale, though, and pretty low. So if you really want to check it out... But the thing that miffs me about Yooka-Replaylee, one of the selling points here is not just like, oh, we've updated the graphics, which is like, yeah, okay, yeah, duh. It's been 7 years, you're gonna make the game look better. But like, there's some pretty basic shit in here that I think is sort of a joke. They're like, oh, we made the controls better. Let me find the actual phrasing. Features, from the features list on the Steam page. Revised controls and camera. A new tweaked moveset allows you to combine moves more fluidly, while the new camera controls make framing the action a breeze. So the first thing that they're adding to this game is like, oh, okay, she's prettier. We put a fur effect on the bat character. Isn't that fun? And then the other thing is, we made the controls and the camera not terrible. And I'm like, okay, cool. You're gonna backport that into the game I already bought? No, of course not, because I bought that game 7 years ago and they don't care. And like, I am not going to sit here and say that everyone who owns Yooka-Laylee, who ever got Yooka-Laylee in a Humble Bundle or some other garbage somewhere, I buy those things all the time. I'm not going to say that everyone who owns Yooka-Laylee should get Yooka-Replaylee for free, but here's my take. The people who backed Yooka-Laylee on Kickstarter should get Yooka-Replaylee for free. Again, that doesn't include me. I didn't do it. But if you did, you 100% deserve this game that they are almost by their own phrasing fixing. They're making it betterer. If you backed it on Kickstarter, you should get it for free. And I don't think that's a crazy ask because I know that Kickstarter was like, you know, a long time ago, right? Because the game came out in 2017. I think the Kickstarter was in 2015, maybe 2016. It was around the time that the Playtonic studio actually opened. I think their first thing was like, we've opened a studio, here's a Kickstarter for our first game. Playtonic is still Playtonic. As far as I know, they're an independent studio still. Someone at that company has access to that Kickstarter account. You could log in. You could update the Kickstarter with some sort of tool that gives people a key or a method to get a key. I think, the immediate argument against this is, oh, well, that would mean that there are so many keys for Yuka-Replaylee out there, some of them for email addresses that were registered to accounts in 2015, like almost 10 years ago. You're going to run into the situation of like some of those emails have probably been compromised, some of those emails aren't accessible. A non-zero percentage of those people who backed that game are dead now, statistically. And like, I mean, RIP, I'm not saying that to be offensive, but it's true. Like in 9 years, a lot of things can happen, but you still have access to that account. If you really want to like play it safe, then come up with some way where people have to log into their Kickstarter account and claim it from you somehow. So you know that you're not putting out more keys than you have to. But like if someone backed Yooka-Laylee, they deserve Yuka-Replaylee for free. I'm going to say that. It's not me. If I want to buy Yuka-Replaylee, I should have to buy it, period. I'm not going to. I don't want to play Yooka-Laylee again. Revisiting Yooka-Laylee for this little conversation with you really reminded me that I don't like Yooka-Laylee, and the level of not liking it was enough that I wanted to talk to you about, hey, I don't think people should buy this. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money. You do what you want. If you really want to play Yuka-Replaylee, I guarantee that they will fix Yooka-Laylee and it will feel better. I can say that. And if you're confident of that, then do what you want. But I think that they're missing a really good opportunity to appeal to the consumer by giving something to those Yooka-Laylee backers, because again, this was your first game and it was Kickstarted. I know that not all of the money comes from Kickstarter and that's like kind of this backdoor way to get money from other people by showing that there is an interest to an actual publisher and blah, 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 blah. And I don't know how that worked for Yooka-Laylee. Again, I think Playtonic is an independent studio. I'm pretty sure they're not owned by some sort of parent company. I don't know. But I will say that like Playtonic is listed as the developer and the publisher. So that tends to mean that they're an independent studio. They are completely within their power to give that to people. They won't, because it would be a headache. It would be an absolute headache. It would be probably kind of a nightmare. They should do it. It was their first game and they had to get Kickstarter backing to get it off the ground. And they got that from people. And I think that the ultimate make good move right now for Playtonic would be to come up with this way of, not necessarily just giving a key to every account that backed the thing, but coming up with some sort of path for people who can prove that they backed it to get something. And I think that the something should just be the remaster, honestly. I think that they should be like, hey, we're admitting with this remaster, and the language around this thing where they're like, yeah, new, better controls, like this is better, this is revised, blah, blah, blah. And they're being a little careful with their wording, I think, but it still sounds to me like, hey, this game wasn't what we wanted it to be when it came out. Well, this remaster theoretically is what you wanted it to be, and that's why you're making it in the first place. So maybe you should do right by the people who helped you get your company off the ground in your first game, which has worked out for them because, I mean, Playtonic, they're the head, like they have a publishing arm. It's Playtonic Friends. And like, yeah, I don't think it's the biggest thing in the world, but like they've published some pretty cool indie games. Little Gator Game is one of theirs, I think. That's the one that I can think of off the top of my head. There are others, and I think they're doing okay. Probably a lot better than a company that, had to get their first game kickstarted would otherwise be doing. Probably better than a lot of companies who 10 years ago were like, we're gonna kickstart a game, and now where are we? I'm trying to think of like who still exists from the Kickstarter days. It's like these guys and the Bloodstained people who are still just adding stuff to Bloodstained. You want to talk about what's a good value for a Kickstarter? I didn't back this either, but Bloodstained still gets content updates. That game's been out forever. That game has 2 cool-ass, like NES Castlevania-style spinoffs, and it still gets updates. Yooka-Laylee doesn't get that. If you backed Yooka-Laylee, you should get it for free. In the same way that, like, I would hope you would stand up for me if they ever put out a version of Shenmue 3 where they were like, we made it not suck ass. Yooka-Laylee, man, it's not a good video game. And I think that there's a moment here to like generate the best good press I could ever imagine. Honestly, at the end of the day, monetarily, it's probably not worth it to the company, and that's why they won't do it, and blah, 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 blah. That's boring and it sucks, and I'm a human being and I don't think that way. I think that the people who helped you should get something out of this. And maybe the argument is, well, they already got something, and that thing was Yooka-Laylee. And it's like, yeah, but they gave you money based on a promise, and you kind of farted in their face. And now you're like, well, this fart's gilded, but you have to pay us again for it. Something about that doesn't feel good to me. I'd be really curious to hear what your thoughts are. Please hit me up in the comments. I'd love to have some discussions about this. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later.